I know it's been a long time. Some of you got my tiny update from a couple of days ago. I've managed to set my camera up on an older computer. It's a little bit slower. It's a Dell, which is crap. I just got bright. Step back. But I thought I would make a quick video and kind of respond to a question that was asked by one of my subscribers. Who am I voting for, and why? At the beginning of this presidential nominee smorgasbord, which I would call it now, I was a secure Hillary Clinton fan. Why? I was really interested in her ideas about healthcare reform. When I listened to her speak, I thought that she was very well informed on what was going on in the world. She had a very clear understanding of the way that the political machine works. And I just got a good feeling about her personality. Maybe it's that I'm a cerebral person, just someone who's a fact finder. I was really impressed by her ability to take in the information and then formulate that into a pitch. When I began to hear Barack Obama speak earlier in the year, he made his first couple of speeches. I was impressed by the content of the speeches, but I wasn't necessarily impressed by him as a speaker. Now, I know that for a lot of people, they were like, oh my goodness, this man is like, the second coming of Martin Luther King. This guy is, very, very articulate, and he's like the first hope that we have for an African American president. And I think that because I'm an actor and I'm also a playwright, I'm not really all that impressed by speeches. And as I said a few minutes ago, I am a pretty cerebral person, so the idea of appealing to my emotions or appealing to the emotions of the people that you're speaking to, it doesn't really impress me all that much. However, that aside, as a firm Democrat, I intend to vote for whoever secures our party's nomination. So this thing came up, a couple of weeks ago, this Reverend Wright controversy. I think it's an interesting thing. It gives you information about Barack Obama's action, his call to action, or in this particular case, his inaction. According to the information that I've read, he attended this church for 20 years, and this man married him and his wife, and christened his children, or baptized his children. So he's been a part of this man's life. And it's been my experience with people, although not in all cases, with most people, when they're around you, they show their true colors to you. If you got someone who is, a misogynist, or a racist, or the homophobic person, or an anti-Semitic person, they tend to reveal themselves to you in your interactions with them. And in this instance, you've got a pastor who has, I guess, what many people would consider very radical views about this country, about our foreign policy and our domestic policy, and also about race relations in this country. Barack Obama, when this story hit the media, began to call out this man, Jeremiah Wright, and to really say that he completely disagreed with this man's view, that he never knew this man carried these views, that he was never present in church when this man was giving the speeches that we saw. And I'm sure that, for every speech that we saw, that there were at least 2 or 3 others that we didn't see, which either contained the same type of material, if maybe not more incendiary material than what we actually saw. And so for me, I'm thinking, okay, this actually just doesn't sit right with me. what doesn't sit right with me is if you've known someone for a long period of time, unless this person has just suddenly taken on these views, you know about this. You know that this man feels this way. You know this man has these feelings, and you're aware that in him, having these feelings, that if you're in his church or you are, regularly associating with this person, that you're probably going to have access to their views. So I thought it was a little bit. Now I know someone was going to say, well, he had to say what he had to say, otherwise he would have been roasted in the media by the media. But I think that what that speaks to is either integrity, which is that you're telling the truth about what it is that maybe you heard those things and that you didn't care that he said those things. His truth. If he genuinely has never heard this man speak of this thing and never knew about these things or didn't or vehemently disagreed with this man's stance, I wonder about his decision to stay in this church for 20 years. Now, I've heard people say, well, you go to church, you may not agree with everything that the pastor says, but you still go to the church because it's about something else. I'll say this, that I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, where I heard many things, many things from my pastor, that now as an adult, I would think might be incendiary. Nothing that was even remotely like what Reverend Wright was talking about, but just how he would, the fire and brimstone. And I'll tell you this, I went to that place, I went to that church, and I was worshiping under that pastor when I was a kid. When it was my parents, and when I was old enough, when I turned, I think, like 17 or 18, I actually began to go to a non-denominational church. And it just didn't do it for me, the Southern Baptist fire and brimstone thing. And I can tell you now, I'm not running for public office. But if I were in a church and someone was saying things that I found, offensive to my own sensibilities, you better believe I would stop going to that church. Period. I'd stop going. Or if I had a close relationship with the pastor, I would, I'd probably say, hey, I don't agree with that, and maybe this should be toned down, And if that isn't your place and you want to maintain your relationship, but you disagree with the politics of it, I'm sure in Chicago there are plenty of churches to go to. The other end of it was action or inaction. Every action has an equal reaction, right? And I think that every inaction says something about your character. I think about the Kitty Genovese story that they talk about in like all the old psych textbooks. I think this happened in New York. I don't know what the year was, but a woman in New York, I guess she was outside of and I'm probably changing the details of this, but I'm going to give you the gist of it, was outside of an apartment building. And she was being attacked. She was screaming for help, and there was a whole building full of people who, when they were later interviewed, had said that they had heard someone screaming for help, but that no one called the police or called any authority because they thought that someone else was going to call the authorities. So then you've got this group of people who will watch some sort of social injustice or some sort of thing that they disagree with, and they'll sort of sit back in the corner and not say anything. Now, if you're going to be a regular Joe Schmo and you're just going to be a sheep in the masses, maybe it doesn't matter that you refuse to act. But if you want to be the lead, one of the largest countries in the world, I think it says a lot about your character when you refuse to make a choice and to lead by example. I thought that was really telling in terms of Barack Obama's character. And I will say, this is, because I get, when I talk about this with people around me, I get this, you should be ashamed, this guy's going to be the first black president. I'm like, yeah, I would be overjoyed, if we've reached a point in our time in this country where a candidate can be truly viable and be of color, or to be an ethnic minority, any ethnic minority, be a woman, etc. But I do think that you still have to regardless of the monumental change that might be on the way. You still have to call out people on their actions and their inaction. And that's my 2 cents about that. What's yours?